Holy shit.
That should be how the podcast starts.
Welcome. Holy shit.
Holy shit. Welcome to the Sex Ed for You podcast with Lauren and Holland.
Where research meets reality.
That one.
This is the podcast for people who want to date and have great sex that is safe, fun, and enjoyable.
We desire to empower our listeners to make values-based decisions that lead to No, that's not what we want to do.
So close.
Informed decisions that lead to values-based living.
There it is.
That's it. I'm Lauren. I'm a certified holistic sexuality educator and the proud owner of Sex Ed for You.
And I'm Holland, and I'm our Chief Culture and Content Coordinator. Yep.
Something.
Today's rough.
Yo, we've been off for 2 weeks. Well, I've been off for 2 weeks. And we have not been in these chairs. And it's so funny how, you get out of practice speaking.
So fast.
Mm-hmm. I've even found, I do like the Marco Polo app with some of my closest friends. And even on that, I was like, you can tell I haven't really spoken to anyone in 2 weeks, that I've been hermiting on vacation. Because I couldn't formulate a beginning, middle, and an end to a story. I was like, that's
a normal Wednesday for me.
This is just like, there is a common thought in there.
Promise there's a string.
Good thing I'm doing this before I'm back with clients, before they just look at me like, what? What are you trying to say?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't help with the stress of everything right now.
Yeah. So this podcast is going to come out the day after the election, 2024. And Holland and I have no idea what election results will be right now. And we were trying to think about how we could approach today's subject matter from a trauma-informed lens, from a values-aligned lens, from a lens that desires to empower our listeners to make informed decisions that lead to values-based living. At Sex Ed for You, we take a very strong stance that we deeply believe that it is never our job to tell any listener, viewer, client what to think or how to think, ever. And so I do not want this podcast to come out off like that. But we did think it would be a really interesting topic to discuss, one, how we could holistically care for our bodies in a time of unrest, any time of unrest, because that would be a helpful thing to be able to call back upon. But then also kind of our journey regarding voting personally, specifically regarding reproductive health, sexual health, bodily autonomy. Mm-hmm. Because we've had journeys, and I think that pertains to what we do here at Sex Ed for You, which is learn new things, make different choices based upon those new things. I will never forget when someone in one of my supervision groups in school said, I'm scared because what if I learn something new in the future and then I have to go back to a client and say, hey, I know I told you fill in the blank, but now I believe fill in the blank. And one of my professors said, oh, that's good. That means that you are a human being who continues to learn. And it is always okay to say, I used to believe, and then I learned, and now I think. That's the scientific process. That is the process of growing and becoming. And there is no shame in that. And it knocked me off my boots when I first heard that, because I grew up in a world of absolutism. Mm-hmm. I grew up black and white, right and wrong, good and bad, sin and holiness in absolute truth. Mm-hmm. And that didn't leave a lot of gray matter. It didn't leave a lot of thinking through what was my values-aligned decision that I needed to make. Didn't leave a lot of room for, oh, wow, that's someone's opinion. I could listen to their opinion and then make my own decisions. And I'm sad. Mm-hmm. I grieve that a lot of my upbringing was, this is what you should believe.
Right.
Because this is right. And so what I would hope is that this podcast today sounds like two women who have grappled and are still grappling with different things, forming different opinions based upon different information that they receive, not like a finger wagging, no. This is what you should do. There's enough of that. Yeah. There is enough shame thrown around. There is enough fear-mongering from all sides.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm not interested in doing that from our vantage point of our lane as a business.
No, we want to bring you information where more often than not, we see a lot of misinformation, especially about reproductive rights and bodily autonomy lately. We want to bring you like we say, information so that you can make values-based decisions that are informed.
Yeah.
But
and you can feel free to disagree with us.
absolutely.
That is the beautiful thing about bringing forward information and opinions that we have formed individually from that information. I want any listener or viewer to know it will not change my love for you. It just won't. If you come to an informed decision of your own, it's in my values that no, it's not okay from my vantage point in the work that I do.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
To dislike someone or to be cruel because of a differing belief.
A differing belief. Not a part of my values. And since I own this here business, not a part of our business values either. And yeah. So you want to kind of kick it off of how you were raised in the good old state of Texas. And kind of some things you grew up believing. I was listening to one of my favorite thinkers, Dara Tucker Webb. We can put her Insta below. And she was sharing that she grew up believing similarly to us. And I really appreciate when people have changed their minds on something.
Oh, yes.
That's crazy powerful. Anyway, y'all, like anyway, when someone tells me their movement into a faith choice.
Can be so beautiful.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Like so beautiful. Embodied choice making is a fave around here.
Fun to watch.
Yes.
Fun to witness.
Yes. So how were you raised?
Oh, boy. Well, I was raised in the good old deep part of Texas, quite literally, the central Texas. We call it Hardo, Texas. And I just kind of thought that the whole world was a Christian conservative.
Yep.
That was just the world that I lived. My whole world was Christian conservative. Let me clarify. I was only surrounded by Christian conservatives. That was my bubble. And I remember using the word Democrat like it was a dirty word. Like we would insult people by calling them Democrats. I remember having a family member who votes Democrat and everyone like making fun of them and saying like, oh, well, don't be like that person. They're a Democrat. It was like a whole thing. So that was like in my young years. I remember going to Christmas at this person's house and my parents telling me, well, they're a Democrat, so just be careful what they're saying to you. And I was like, okay, like I'm like thinking these are like people who worship Satan. So that was kind of my preconceived notion of like my whole upbringing. That Democrats are evil and Christian conservatives are always right. We are morally correct. We follow the word, like the word of the Lord. We are working towards a better, more godly country. And that is just simply the right way to live. It worked for me for a very long time. And honestly, I loved it because it gave me a set of rules to follow. And I was great at following rules. As I got into high school, I started to hang out with more of the band kids and the theater kids because I had realized that I didn't really find my people in my regular circles. And they had differing opinions. And all of a sudden, this bubble that I had been living in was popped very quickly. And it made me angry. It made me uncomfortable. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't agree with me? What do you mean we don't have the same foundational values? It shocked my system. And I vividly remember I had so many library periods, like study periods, because I was ahead on my classes. Anyway, in one of my mini library periods, a girl that I had classes with and often disagreed with, just in, academic discourse, was talking about abortion. And we had like a 10-minute argument on abortion where I was arguing that they were killing babies. That was my argument. And I was just like, no matter what she had said to me, my ears, she was falling on deaf ears. No matter what argument she made, and she was a very well-rounded thinker. She was a beautiful, argumentative woman. No matter what she said, my only argument was, you're killing babies. No matter what you say to me, you're killing babies. So I don't care what you're saying. I did not have a single word of hers land upon this brain. And then as I got older and thought more, I remember having a conversation with my mom about Plan B and what Plan B did. And even as a public health major, I had a completely incorrect understanding of what the Plan B pill did. I thought the Plan B pill killed sperm. That's not what it does. It halts ovulation. So I thought that Plan B would work no matter what because it was just killing all the sperm.
bing, bing.
Just zinging them, gotcha. Which is what a copper ID does.
It does. That's what mine does.
But
it's literally a zapping.
Yes.
I love it.
It was a misunderstanding. And so like all of these little things were just slowly but surely kind of breaking down this understanding of what I thought I knew, what I thought was absolute, what I thought was true. And so then I just got deeper into public health, started to understand the true ramifications of bans on abortion, on birth control, of sex education, of abstinence only education, started just learning more. And the more I learned, the more curious I was about, okay, maybe I need to learn more. I've learned a lot. I think I need to learn more, because now I'm not only combating this one issue, I'm not only learning things that are contrary to my foundational beliefs regarding reproductive health. These are making me question everything. And that is kind of what literally got the ball rolling. I remember that conversation about abortion in the library was the first step towards like, oh fuck, something is changing. And it was just a snowball effect from there.
So fascinating, because it's got me like, okay, what were my different little things too?
Yes, tell us yours.
One thing I really heard in that, which we also learned in school, which I also want to make sure we're saying to our audience, is we don't change people's minds.
Oh, no. Yeah.
People change their own minds. And isn't it so clear, right? Is that you had this very, I'm sure, like, age-appropriate conversation about these things. Two people with uteruses were having this conversation. And yeah, she didn't change your mind. And it's just so interesting in political climates like this, because I think we really think in our deep souls that we will change someone's mind. And I don't think it's our place. I just don't. But just really cool to look back and be like, yeah, no. I remember similar conversations, not even conversations. I just remember overhearing things with theater friends who were discussing their takes on why would you restrict someone's right to abortion. And me thinking the one and only thing I was taught, which was you were killing babies. And that was the only thing I had been taught. And little bit of nerdism here. The deeper I have gone into this field that we now live and work in, I have learned that the willful withholding of information that could help any human being make an informed choice about their bodies is unethical, period. So now when I look back, I'm like, that was not okay. It is 100% okay if someone comes to a values-based decision that they cannot align with abortion of any kind. I support them and applaud them. But when people like me were never given comprehensive education, informed, scientifically accurate, medically accurate information about what goes on in the reproductive process, in different levels of abortion, that is shameful. We should be ashamed, because it is the willful withholding of information that could lead to me making an informed decision upon my body. And shame on the whole world, because that's unethical.
And
so that's where I stand now. Yeah. I remember, and this is interesting, I didn't start to change until much later. And it was ironically inside of the maternal health nonprofit world. I was actively working in the lives of people from preconception to postpartum. So folks wanting, longing for babies, struggling with infertility, doing IVF and IUIs, and just all this different stuff. And I was working with folks dealing with debilitating postpartum depression and anxiety. And I was going to churches, assuming that they would like to financially contribute to our work, seeing as we were actively serving women inside of their congregations, either financially or in-kind donations, either having their ladies groups make things for these women really suffering in postpartum depression. And I was turned away every single solitary time because we did not have an evangelical lens. And I would say, I do not think, it does not sit right in my body for this to be a faith-based organization, because I want my organization to be able to serve women who would never set foot in a church. I don't think that's right. And it's just so interesting to look back on like Lauren's little internal ethic, because she was deep in the church, because like you were saying, it served me. I'm a little white girl. It was fine for me. My first was when I had been told my whole life that we care about life. We are pro-life. We are pro-life. We are pro-life. And I just remember getting door slam after door slam, no after no after no, when I wanted to help newborn babies or folks who had less advantage than I did when it came to helping themselves thrive from preconception to postpartum. And it was my first little, well, wait, what? Like, you want these people to keep these babies at all costs, but then you don't want to support them while they're pregnant or in postpartum when they experience a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. You don't want to know? Yeah. I just remember being so confused. And that was, the huge start of my journey. Then my organization started partnering with more and more organizations of color, because women of color in the United States of America are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth. And when you're inside of a maternal health and reproductive health nonprofit sphere and you're advocating, you need to align with the there's just data. You can't argue the data. Then once I was inside of systems that didn't look like me, I was like, what? Right? Like more and more information started to just come my way. And I thought, oh, wait, there's so many people who you'll see graphics that go around that are like, make the choice to have a baby before you have sex. I'm like,
whoa.
What?
There's a lot to unpack there.
So much to unpack there. That is assuming that there's consent every step of the way. That is consuming there is no abuse present. That is considering that there's no coercion present. That is considering so many things, so much privilege. The lack of trauma-informed view there is just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
But that's what I grew up thinking.
Yeah.
I grew up thinking that no one had sex without considering the ramifications of their sex. And so it was really late, which I always want to tell people. Like, I was a very voting Republican for many years because of my stance on, well, we don't kill babies. And it's just so nuanced and so gray. And I had a lot of learning to do.
Right.
A whole lot of learning. But my similar wake up call was ironically inside of maternal health care.
Yeah. Which I think makes so much sense. It may seem vaguely ironic, but I think it is also it speaks to the truths that are truly happening, because I see so much of political campaigns saying, well, they want to kill babies in the 3rd trimester. They want to kill babies. They want to have post-birth abortions, which, by the way, is murder. That's not an abortion. And that just speaks to the truths to me of like the abortions are not willful murder
done by baby haters.
No.
Like, I love babies.
Yeah.
That is like my favorite thing. It is my first love. Helping people birth babies is my first calling in life that I received. Like,
you've done it recently.
Yes. Like, this is a thing I do.
Yes.
And so but I didn't think that they could coexist.
Right. Well, we were taught that they were not able to, that there was no circle of the Venn diagram. You know, it was very much taught that you either kill babies or you vote Republican. Like, those were the choices. That's what was presented to me.
Yep.
And presented to you.
Yep.
And I think that, as we say time and time again, nuance just prevails in this situation. There is no right or wrong necessarily. accept what you specifically believe based on your nuanced, informed decisions. Yes. But without that nuanced information and data and experience and research, you are not making an informed decision, and you are not inherently correct because of what you have been told or what you believe that is lacking the data, the information, and the experience. Even if you have data, information, and experience, and you come to whatever conclusion, then wonderful, incredible, whatever that decision may be.
Yes.
But if it is not informed, you're missing the point.
Well, I just think, it is fascinating too, because every human being has such a different lived experience. Mm-hmm. And every single solitary day, I get to sit with folks who have vastly different stories of upbringing, of information that they were privy to, that was given to them from their young age. Every single client of mine went through a different school that provided them different level of sexuality education, right? And reproductive education. Everybody's got a different amount of information. And so to assume that what is right for one is right for all is just hilarious to me now.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about comprehensive sexuality education and abstinence only until marriage education. Mm-hmm. So slight history lesson. We called it the Chastity Act, and it actually wasn't done until Reagan, I think, and it all was connected to the True Love Waits rally. It was all connected to kind of this freak out we had culturally because of the AIDS epidemic, and that makes so much sense. I want everybody to understand, it's like, again, to Holland's nuance word all the time, this is nuanced. The cultural response to people dying because of a sexually transmitted infection makes a lot of sense, right? Mm-hmm. What are we going to do? Okay, let's encourage abstinence. And encouraging abstinence is fun. It is a thing. It's a choice. Okay.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. But what we now know from data and research is abstinence only until marriage education doesn't actually work. When we look at the research, young people who have been given abstinence only until marriage education still engage in first intercourse at the same age as those who received comprehensive sexuality education. The only change is that the folks who received abstinence only until marriage education did not use protection.
AKA, the pregnancy rates of those who are in abstinence-only education are higher than those who have comprehensive sexuality education.
Which leads to greater amounts of abortions. To tell me that young people who are developing as sexual beings should not be given comprehensive sexuality education is poppycock. Mm-hmm. What is interesting is those who receive comprehensive sexuality education tend to initiate first intercourse slightly later and initiate it from a place of embodied choice, not from, I guess I have to, or I didn't know how to say no, or this or that, from a, this feels like something I want. Mm-hmm. They're able to identify abusive and coercive behaviors inside of sexual experiences. They are able to identify, no, I don't think this is a good person. Mm-hmm. They have a tendency to be able to look at a sexual encounter from a much more holistic view, not sex makes me sinful, and therefore I can tell no one about this sex. Right. I cannot get help soon. I don't know about Plan B. I don't know, right? There's so much lack of information and knowledge.
Right. And I think one of the big miscommunications and misinformation that is surrounding this specific topic, sexuality education is age appropriate. We don't want to teach children how to do sexual acts. That is not what sexuality education is. Sexuality education is information regarding genitalia, it is information regarding relationships, consent,
intimacy. We can pop up the 5 circles of sexuality or make it a handout, because I think it was originally created by Advocates for Youth, and it's so good. And those 5 circles are sensuality, an understanding and an awareness of and an appreciation for one's own body and the bodies of others, right? How do I feel in my body, right? I love listening to Alona Mayer, the rugby player who's now on Dancing with the Stars, and just her own awareness of her body. I'm like, yes, this woman is so fucking sensual because she has an awareness of her own body and it's sexy, right? So sensuality is, wow, my body's strong. Oh, this fabric feels good on my body. It's things like that. Oh, it feels good to hold someone's hand. Oh, I like it when my dad hugs me. That type of stuff. Okay. Sensuality, then intimacy, then sexual identity, our sense of maleness or femaleness and where we fall in that spectrum, and what we are attracted to and desirous of romantically and eventually physically. Then sexual health and reproduction, and then sexualization. Which is really important that we know the differentiation between all of those 5. But to Holland's point, we've said this on our news segment, but I don't know if we've said it here, that age-appropriate sexuality education looks very similar to the way we teach math inside of schools. We don't teach kindergartners advanced trig. We teach kindergartners basic numbers. Then in first grade, you learn how to add those numbers together. And then in second grade, maybe you learn some times tables. It's slow and progressive and is the building blocks to being able to do calculus and geometry in high school. It is such a misrepresentation of comprehensive sexuality education, or the push or advocation of putting sexuality education in schools to be like, they want to teach our kids how to have sex or
and to be gay.
Yeah. It's just so, I forget that people say that.
That one is always, and
always.
Because when you mentioned the sense of femaleness and maleness, I think what popped to my mind immediately is not that we are introducing the idea that you should change your gender.
No.
It is that almost every child in that room, literally according to statistics, is going to say, yeah, I'm in a girl body. I feel like a girl. That is generally what's going to occur. But for that one child who feels different, it is vital to their life, to their literal existence, because the suicide rates of people who have questions regarding their gender and their sex are astronomically high, especially in places that are harmful to children that feel different in their bodies. We are not introducing the idea of maleness and femaleness to garner votes for transgenderism. That is not what sexuality education does. What sexuality education does is it encourages love for all and for equality, and not to convince anyone of anything, but to let them know that it is okay to be the way that they are. It is nothing more than that. And if that irks you, we have more conversations to have. And that's a beautiful thing. Genuinely lean into that feeling. Why does it irk you? What questions does that rise within your body? Because it is a deeper issue than that kid needs to just be okay with what they are. That's not true.
No. And please hear me too. Just like we said at the start of this podcast, I am not an advocate for brainwashing.
No.
I am not an advocate for putting on to young people certain ways of thinking that indoctrinate them to believe a certain thing. Ironically, that's what happened to me inside of religiosity. I am no more an advocate for that than I would be for some type of brainwashing of children. That is not what education is. Education is giving children a wider picture than what they might have access to within their own home. I was just reading a fascinating book on the development of the masculine psyche. And they were talking about different cultures and how in different cultures men wear dresses. And in different cultures, it would be more appropriate for men to kiss on the street than it would be for a woman and a man to kiss on the street. And we must remember that we have been socialized according to our culture. And the way that we are defining gender roles for children in the United States of America is cultural. That's it. It actually means nothing.
Yes.
It's silly. It's silliness. And it is far more beautiful to remind our children that wherever it is that they're going to elementary school or middle school or high school is simply a place. Simply a place.
It's not the whole world.
It's not. And if they feel uncomfortable in this place, what tools can we give them to remember that their world is so big and so beautiful and large? But again, please hear me. I am not an advocate for any form of brainwashing or indoctrination of children. And I think that often when we mention putting comprehensive, age-appropriate sexuality education in schools, people think,
Yes.
oh, yes, you want to make them gay.
That's not what we want to do, I promise.
We just want children who were born gay to see, oh, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yes.
Again, there is so much more nuance than this is how a baby is made.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely a piece of reproduction. But no, I would love to see more menstruation education.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's ridiculous the amount that people who bleed do not have access to understanding their own bodies.
Yes.
It's really freaking ridiculous.
Oh, it's frustrating.
The amount of our clients who tell me that their period was mentioned once in their home when they started and never discussed again. Never in school, never with peers, never with their parents.
Yep.
That's horrifying.
Yep.
We bleed like every 24 to 32 days. All the time. There's just like...
Women are bleeding constantly.
All the
across
time.
The world. Every single day there's a woman bleeding somewhere. And she may not be informed as to what that means for her body, what her nutrients need, what her hormones are doing, or what that even means for what's going on. Mm-hmm. Like,
what is normal? What is abnormal? What is an appropriate amount of blood loss? What is not? What would endometriosis look like? Like so many things. Different forms of different hygiene products. There's so much information, and I would love for people who don't bleed to have that same information too.
Yes.
So that there can be compassion and empathy for, I don't know, half of the population.
Yes.
Like it's just... That has to do with reproduction as well. And it's interesting when you look at the circles of sexuality because they say factual information. And that's what so much is kept. I have so many clients who don't know that your fertile window is small, is very little.
Yeah.
That's all. And that you're probably going to be more desirous of penetrative intercourse in those days. That would be really good to learn alongside of how babies are made. That'd be nice. It'd be really nice.
I keep seeing this bit of Hannah Berner. She's a comedian. Absolutely love her. And she was asking guys how women pee when they have tampons in. Going to give you a second to think about that. How do women pee when they are wearing a tampon? We have 3 holes. People with uteruses have 3 holes. There is a urethra that connects to your bladder where you pee. There is the vagina that connects to your vaginal canal, that connects to your cervix, that connects to your uterus. And then there's the anus, which we all know what that does. There's 3 holes. Your tampon goes in your vagina. And it's just like, it's mind-blowing to me that people genuinely just don't know. And that is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to change. It is something to say, oh, we need more education. And that's okay.
It's so interesting because I have the fortunate opportunity to have a 14-year-old who's in high school. And so I get to see what's being taught in public school systems. And in the state of Virginia, where we are, sexuality education is provided, but it doesn't have to be comprehensive and it doesn't have to be scientifically or medically accurate. And talking about prevention methods is discouraged. It is discussed, but discouraged. And it's just so sad that like fragmented information that's passed on, and it's usually done by somebody who teaches a sports team.
Yeah. PE.
Yeah. And he's great. He's sweet. He's wonderful. It's not like somebody who went to school for this.
Right.
Or they don't require you to also go do that. No, you're teaching from a curriculum. And that curriculum is whatever your health advisory board for your little city chose. And again, I don't really think there's ill intent for anyone on the health team here in my little city, but it's not comprehensive. And I know what the people who don't bleed are getting, the education. And it's not enough.
It's not enough.
They're thinking, and I get why, right? The penis ejaculates and pees from the same hole. And so there's an assumption, oh, their body must be like my body. I get it. That's why education.
Yes. It hurts my heart to see us give young people so much what I would deem useless information.
Yeah.
I've never used algebra since I graduated high school. Algebra can be useful for engineers and things like that, but there's a lot of useless information that you learn in high school. There just is.
Yeah.
And yet the information pertaining to the bodies they will live in for the rest of their lives, the bodies that they will live in, have sex in, have children in, die in, they don't know about it. We're not giving them the full picture, as if this body is not the most important thing that you own.
No. We have this deck of cards. You all know that how much Holland and I love decks of cards. But another one that I have is questions to have with kids and questions about conversations to have with kids. And one of them is what's not taught in school that you think should be taught in school. And I remember asking my kiddo years ago what she thought. And she said consent and communication. I mean, it was like no brainer. I was like, what do you mean? She was like, no one knows how to communicate. No one. That'd be nice. And I was like, oh, yeah.
She really slammed it down there.
There you go.
Mic drop.
Okay. Consent is so encompassing and so beautiful and should be the foundation of so many things. Even, I'm laughing at, again, this political terrain, that so much of the marketing and the texting and all, it's just non-consensual. I didn't give you my number.
Yes.
Why are you texting me?
Yes.
You do not have my consent. It would be so neat if I was getting a message that was like, hey, may we send you a message regarding so-and-so's campaign. Opt in, yes or no. That'd be cool.
And then send it from the same freaking phone number. Why is it from
Why
40
am I getting so many
different phone
And
numbers?
then I got one the other day that was like such and such. And I was like, I voted.
I'm already done, yeah.
And they were like, oh, thanks so much. And then I've gotten 4 more texts. When can we count on you to go to the polls?
Already
So finally I
did.
said, stop. 2, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, consent would be really transformational. And it can be taught when children are very little.
Yes.
That's
And be implemented for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
It can help them say no to sexual encounters that they
It
don't
could help
want.
prevent abortion.
Yes.
Shocker.
It can help prevent abuse. Because the amount of people accidentally walking into abusive relationships because they don't know what abuse looks like at such young ages. We should teach consent.
Yeah. If there is, something that you don't like in the world, I remember thinking, kind of to Holland's point, what if I swam further upstream?
Okay.
Right? Like, okay, I don't like this, fill in the blank. What if I get to know more about humans? What if I get to know more about reproduction? What if I get to know more of the education behind what could prevent this even needing to be the outcome? Whether that is, how we deem children learn inside of school systems, whether that is your take on gun control or lack of gun control. It has been a fascinating practice of mine to be like, what if I dig deeper?
Right.
What are the origins of this policy? What are the reasons behind this, that, or the other thing? Where am I getting censored information? And I truly mean this from all sides.
Yes.
That I don't appreciate that sometimes we can find certain pockets of the world who like to think that they're doing it better. They're doing the only one type of information, indoctrination, fear-mongering better than those that did the same thing to me inside of a church. It's the same thing. And it's okay if we bristle at some of that because it's yucky. It really is. To that point, what if we transition a little bit to self-care?
Right.
In this interesting climate from a holistic standpoint? Because I think, I've seen the post too, I'm sure everybody has, of like, don't call I don't know. It's like blaming self-care in these times.
Huh?
I'm going to say it'll be a really good choice if you care for yourself in this day and age, if you're listening to this right around the election, because as one of my favorite social workers said, self-care is an ethical obligation. And if you are on a spiral right now, everybody in your life is going to be feeling your spiral. And we need to do self-care so that we can do collective community care. What are some tips and tricks, my dear friend, on some self-care tools that we
I
could use?
took a very long bath last night. Took a very long bath with very calming music. I've been listening to like piano or lo-fi, whatever your calming music is, listen to that. It's kind of the same self-care tips that we give every time, because I think that consistency can also be beautiful for the body in times such as these. So taking a long bath with Epsom salts, I put some nice smells in the room, I lit a candle, I read a book, especially regarding the election. Throw your phone out the fucking window. Get rid of it. Turn off Instagram, turn off Facebook. Just get away, especially if you've already voted, because there's nothing else you can do.
You've done a civic duty and beautiful job.
Put the phone away. What else would you add to that?
Yeah, pay attention to your nervous system. I would add in some form of breathing that feels good for you. I know a lot of folks who enjoy like a box breathing, which is inhaling for 4 seconds, holding it at the top for 4, exhaling for 4, and holding it there for 4. So think of it as a box, but maybe that's a lot. What I love about that is that like I have to think about it.
Yeah.
And so it takes so much brain space that I am able to calm my nervous system because I literally have to think about it. But some people just enjoy like putting their hand on their tummy and just taking a full breath, seeing how full they can get it. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. Doing nose breathing is going to calm the nervous system. It's going to be down regulating. Also, when your exhalation is longer than your inhalation, it is going to down regulate. So being really mindful of that. If you feel that you keep getting, this is why Holland said, put that phone away, those cortisol, adrenaline spikes, it is literally not healthy for us. It can lead to literally long-term health ramifications. Don't do it.
Does.
I would say spend time with people you love. Like
Yes.
laughter, again, maybe putting on a funny movie. Laughter is so good for us. I've been doing a lot of reading on Jungian theory recently. And so I'm reading a lot about shadow work. And so they're reminding us, which we say often, that the subconscious doesn't know the difference. So if you are feeling anger or fear, one of the tips I just read is to wet a towel. You know how heavy a wet towel gets? Okay. And slam it.
Oh, yeah.
Throw it in your shower.
Yeah.
Because
Hit
they
a
were
counter.
Yes. So think of something, get a pillow, do something, because the subconscious doesn't know the difference. And so if you really do feel like you need to get out some aggravation or some pent up frustration, rage regarding everything that's going on, do it.
Yeah.
And I love that wet towel idea
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's heavy. It feels almost like a slam ball in the gym.
You could go boxing.
Yeah.
I love a good lift, especially a leg day.
Like it's okay.
Yeah.
Again, the subconscious doesn't know the difference. And so if you feel like you need to go on a sprint, you need to climb a hard mountain, all of that, I think would be a really good idea.
I loved what you said about hanging out with, talking to people that you love. I would also say, especially with election, hanging out with people that you love that you know maybe have a different opinion, because it reminded me, I did this last night, it reminded me that people are still people.
Yes.
As hard as whatever you're going through is, even if you don't agree with everyone that you love, which I think we all love someone who we disagree with, hanging out with them and seeing that connection that is there despite any disagreements. Love is love.
I was telling Holland that I took my 14-year-old with me to vote early on Saturday, and media would have her think that everyone hates each other right now.
Yes.
And in line, since it was the last early day to vote, all of the city council representatives were there, and she got to meet everyone who was running, independent, Republican, Democrat. We'd go through line and she would go, they were really nice. And it broke my heart into a million pieces because I got to say, yeah, baby girl. Yeah. They love this community as much as you and I do. They have a different belief or opinion, and that does not make them evil. I know that some people are really going to disagree with us on this because there's a lot of rhetoric going around right now about, that is very divisive. That is, you cannot love. And I just, as a person who's been on the other side, I didn't know. No. I wasn't doing it because I hated my neighbor.
Right.
I was indoctrinated. I really believed that we were killing babies or fill in the blank. And I was trying to vote upon my values. And I beg us to take a more nuanced approach, because I agree with Holland. It is so healthy to remember the humanity behind each of us, and that no matter the results of this election, we live in communities. We have roles to play. We have tasks to do that are beautiful and that are ours, that we are called to. And loving our neighbor is important to me and always will be important to me. And I've got to believe in a world in which we can agree to disagree. And we're not going to get there by othering.
Yeah.
And by only being in community with people who believe exactly what we believe. Yep. I don't, that's not going to be a part of my ethic. And so I agree with Holland. It is really healing to sit with folks, share a meal with folks, break bread with folks who disagree. And yeah, it's good.
It is good. It's good for your soul. It's good. It's a good reminder, because I've seen the same divisive rhetoric from both sides of like, well, this is an election where if you're on the other side, it's because we just hate each other. Essentially, I can't agree with you. I can't sit with you because we clearly have such differing views. The thing is, I think that is a very easy opinion to have when you aren't talking to people. I know that it is hard, and I know that there are a lot of topics, especially in this election, that are very divisive, but people are still people, and we still are going to inherently want the best, I think, for each other. We all have our reasons for believing what we believe. We all have our values that we align with. That doesn't mean that anyone who disagrees with you is inherently wrong.
They might have grown up like Holland and I did. They might have received all their information from one source. And I can tell you one thing, you ostracizing is not going to ever help them come to a different opinion. And again, I don't believe it's our job to change somebody's mind. I don't. But I do think that we have a lot to learn from one another.
Yes.
And I envision a day when we don't have just a two-party system. We have many, many different ways to vote that support. And it is interesting having a person who's 14 who in 4 years will get to vote in the next presidential election. And I hope and pray that sooner rather than later, this new generation is like, like we need something new to look at, because the systems are broken. Yeah. So yeah, take care of yourselves again, because it's an ethical obligation. If anyone is a parent listening to this podcast episode, I really encourage you to check in on your kids too, because children are picking up on all of this. Try not to doomsday around them. The world is not going to end. It's not going to be over. And children are really looking to their attachment figures right now of, are things going to be okay? And let's just be mindful. Let's be mindful of the small people in our lives, because they're picking up on the stress and the nervous systems of the adults and the caregivers in their lives. And now would be a really good time to have some talks, open talks with them about how you're feeling and about how, we could do community collective care right now. There's a lot of beautiful things to do. Yeah. Thanks for coming to this episode of Sex Ed for You, where research meets reality. Now I remember the name. Keep in mind, these are very much opinions. If there was ever an opinion episode, this was it. You, hopefully, if you didn't agree with us, felt free to turn it off earlier, but you can always feel free to unsubscribe, to not share, to do anything you need to take care of your nervous system. If we dysregulated you, we acknowledge that can happen. I was just listening to something about, a shadow hook. Basically, there can be certain personalities, and we could have done this to you today, that like aggravate you. So we could have stirred you up today. And if that's the case, take care of yourself. Really, we encourage everyone to make informed decisions. You have a right to self-determination, and we support that at all times.
You can find us on Instagram at sex_ed_for_you. If you would like to book a free consult, you may request one at sexedforyou.com/free consult. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email me at admin@sexedforyou.com.
I think that's all. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye.